Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mocktail Minutes. This is Bailey.
And I'm Brianna.
Today, well, every day, we're starting with our fun mocktails. Today, I'm doing Olipop, the lemon lime. I went to Target yesterday and they had some fun flavors, so pick some up from there.
I just remembered that I actually picked something up specifically for this, but it's in my fridge. So I'll tell you what I already made. Just thinking of it. I have today the Jigsaw, the adrenal cocktail, and I mix it with a little bit of pineapple juice because I don't really like the flavor of it by itself. Some people do. I do not. So just have like a little bit of pineapple juice in there.
I
That's
have
fine.
not tried the adrenal cocktail yet, but I've heard the flavor just not everyone loves. So yeah, I've heard mixing with pineapple juice. I think Megan does orange juice and maybe some coconut milk with it. And it's kind of like a dreamsicle.
Oh.
I guess we can kind of spill a surprise. We didn't really talk about this before we hopped on, but I think we're gonna do a giveaway soon.
Oh, yes, we are. It's a good giveaway, too.
Yeah.
There's some fun stuff.
And part of it is the adrenal cocktail. So if you win, you get to try it. But we'll post more details about it on our Instagram pages.
Yeah.
And we'll get that soon because we like to just give things away and they're really good prizes. Part of me wants to just keep it all, but
I know. But yeah, it's great. You guys aren't going to want to miss it. So
yes.
we'll give you more details soon.
So today we are talking about cutting back on alcohol. We've had a few episodes lately, we've discussed alcohol, what it looks like to you, how to include it mindfully. But I think working on the cutting back piece of it can actually be really hard. So we decided to dedicate a whole episode to it.
And I'm glad we're talking about this because I feel like alcohol is a hard thing to balance, and
Mhm.
it's one thing to say, "Oh, I'm going to cut back," and then it's another thing to kind of be in your real life and realize maybe how difficult that is and, ask yourself, "Why am I doing it?" that sort of thing. So, hopefully after this episode you have some good tips on how that can really work for you.
Yeah, I think it definitely is maybe kind of one of the hardest pieces to almost let go of because it is a very social thing. You go to the pool, you have maybe a vodka water, you have a seltzer, you have some beers maybe, or anything like that. You go to a concert, you're going to have a drink. You go to a family dinner, maybe you guys each order a drink there. And it's kind of like when you're with a group of people too, if one person orders drinks, it kind of like sets the scene for everyone, then just
Yeah.
everyone orders drink, and then it's almost like you can't feel like, I don't know, sometimes I felt like a weirdo because I didn't get something to
hmm
drink.
Or it's like you're that one person that doesn't order and everyone's like, "Oh, why? Are you sober? Did you have an issue with alcohol? I mean, oh my gosh, tell me." And it's just like, okay, I just want to order whatever I want to drink. And it's like, doesn't have to be a thing. So I think you're right. It is such a social thing. And I feel like it puts people in a weird position where, like, a lot of times it's like, yeah, if someone does start ordering drinks, it's almost like I'm just going to order a drink because I just don't want to be that odd one out,
Yeah.
you know? So,
And there is kind of like that pressure almost to order it. And for me, I'm 26 right now, so we do go out with friends a lot of the times. And every time, I don't think we've ever gone to an event where not a single person hasn't ordered alcohol. Like there's always at least someone ordering something to drink. And so it's always kind of just been a thing. Like we go do something, it includes drinks. And especially, you know, when I was in college, like
mhm.
lots of drinks were happening.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it came to a point where I was just like, I feel terrible, And I graduated college. I got my first big girl job. And it was like I just couldn't keep drinking every day. It wasn't like I was getting hammered every night or anything like that. But I was exhausted. It was like my brain would not function at work. It was hard. Like
hmm
obviously I got my job done. I did everything. I showed up every day for my job, but I just felt terrible. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to feel that way anymore. So that's when I was like, all right, I'm just not going to drink during the week.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a slow transition and it was kind of weird just because so many things that we've done, like you went out to eat, we got some drinks. So I think for me, it was kind of learning to break the rules where you don't have to, just because you go out to dinner, you don't have to get drinks. Just because you're at the pool doesn't mean you have to have a drink. So kind of breaking those rules really helped me decide, what I wanted my week to look like if it was going to include alcohol, and kind of planning ahead in that type of way.
And I think you bring up a good point. Like, you just felt kind of cruddy. And I think people don't realize how much alcohol does affect them. And alcohol is such a normal thing. It's normal to go out and have drinks. It's normal to, like, at the end of the day, have a drink, wind down, that sort of thing. And I think it's something we don't think about when we're like trying to take a step back and be like, okay, I want to get healthier, or I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. I want to lose weight, that sort of thing. We don't really take alcohol into account because it is so normalized. I just think we don't realize how much it impacts us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the first things I ask clients when they're like, I have really low energy. Well, number one, I ask, okay, are you eating enough? Like, besides the eating and the sleeping, like, how much alcohol do you drink? Is this a regular thing? Do you do it every day? Or, when you are doing it, how many drinks are you having? And it's just like this light bulb moment of like, oh yeah, well, I do have like my glass of wine every night. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's where we need to start.
And I think definitely starting, I guess I have two questions that you can ask yourself when you're thinking about alcohol, kind of thinking about what's my relationship like with this alcohol. Number one, is it working for you? Is it serving for you? When I thought about that, I was like, no, it's not working for me. I feel crappy every day. I don't like being hungover. I don't, like I said, I was not getting hammered or anything, and I wasn't like hungover every day. But the times where I was hungover, I'm like, this is a terrible feeling. And then it kind of just set my week back because I didn't get my stuff done on Sunday. So now I was trying to do everything in like Monday, and it just wasn't working for me anymore. It wasn't serving me. It wasn't getting me to live this life I wanted to live. I did not want to live that way anymore. So that's your first question. And then the second question to kind of stop and ask yourself is, what do you associate alcohol with? And for me, I think it was almost maybe a part of my personality. I felt like because I always like to go out and like to have fun. So it was kind of just Bailey's going out. She's going to have a drink or four or five.
Yeah.
And so I kind of associate it with like being the fun person. And I felt like if I gave it up, then I couldn't have fun anymore. And maybe I was going to be the weirdo, or I was just going to like miss out if I wasn't having it.
Yeah. And I think we do associate like alcohol with fun. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, we're going to go on vacation. We're going to go out. We're going to do this. It's like, we're going to a concert. It's the first thing you think about is like drinks. And it's almost like this pre-rec. Like, you have to drink in order to have fun. And I think that's like a slippery slope. We just get easily caught up in that. I think that's just like a normal thing. But then sometimes for a lot of people, it turns into this like habit to where you don't know how to have fun without alcohol. And then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, is this really still serving you? Because now this might be more of an issue. It's kind of hard to have those genuine connections. I mean, I used to say this all the time, like growing up, like you have your friends and then you have your friends you party with. And it's like the friends I party with, I would never just go out to dinner sober and like hang out with them. Those are not the type, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? There really are those people you just like, they're party friends, but like you kind of start to just surround yourself with those kind of relationships instead of like those deeper relationships that actually really pour into you.
Yeah.
Not saying that you can't have alcohol and do that, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of sometimes friendships, I will say, they do shift a little bit because we do have those different types of people in our life. Do you watch Vanderpump Rules?
Yes.
So talking about this, it reminds me of Lala Kent. She has her podcast, and I started that from the beginning, and I've started Vanderpump Rules from the beginning a few months ago. And so seeing her journey kind of unfold with her becoming sober and everything, it's really cool to
Mhm.
watch.
I agree.
And yeah, I love hearing her story about it. And she talks about it on her podcast so many times. And someone had asked, like, why did you decide to do this? What was kind of your turning point? And for her, I mean, we all don't have this where we're able to watch ourselves on TV, but kind of she was literally seeing what alcohol was doing with her as the same time as she was feeling the effects of it, of going 4 days with nonstop drinking and being like, getting to a point where she just didn't want to do that anymore. So yeah, I mean, she has a really cool journey with that, and it's interesting to watch unfold on TV and then on her podcast too.
Yeah. And I think she is a good example too, because I still feel like she's fun.
Yes.
Like she's fun. And I think that's what people are most worried about. It's like, I'm not
Hmm.
gonna be the fun person. I'm not gonna know what to do. But yes, you will. And if you are surrounding yourself with people that only think you're fun when you're drinking, you probably need other friends. but yeah. So here are, let's get into like some tips
Yeah.
that you can take away if you're, maybe considering drinking less or not drinking anymore. You want to go ahead and talk about a few of them?
Yeah, I would say number one, talk about it and not in a weird way where you have to have a sit down intervention with your family or anything like that.
Family meeting.
Yeah, just like talk about it and be upfront and honest with it, even if it's not to the point where you have like a drinking problem, even if it's just where you're like, you know what, I just want to cut back. I think that can just be helpful to be like, hey, I'm not drinking tonight. Just leave it at that. It doesn't have to be anything weird. It doesn't have to be an hour long conversation. Just kind of let people in the loop. Just be like, I just
Yeah.
don't want to.
With that, get ready for the "Are you pregnant?" question, because I feel like
Yeah.
that's but yeah, just like, hey, I'm not drinking tonight. And like, you're always going to get, I mean, maybe not. Maybe your family's like, okay, cool. Your friends are like, or whatever. But there's always going to be like a couple people that are like, oh, why? And like kind of
Yeah.
really cry. I would say, and I tell clients this similarly when it comes to nutrition, like people who are like, oh, why are you choosing not to do that? Or why are you doing that? It's always more about them and like their weird insecurities and whatever is going on inside their head. So if you have someone that's like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? Why are you doing that? Has more to do with them and not you. So yeah, just like the disclaimer up front. Hey, I'm not drinking. Cool.
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
And I guess kind of going along with it, another tip is deciding what your reasoning is. Because while we don't have to explain ourselves to other people, I mean, most of us are not just going to randomly stop drinking and not have a reason, right? So decide for yourself, why are you doing this? And that's probably going to be a lot more motivating. My reason was because I was tired of feeling like crap. I was tired of feeling like literally I felt just so inflamed, to be honest,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just exhausted. I was tired of feeling unproductive the next day and just the trickle effect. And honestly, I hate the feeling of being drunk, anyways. So, deciding your reasonings, it doesn't have to be, again, anything crazy.
Hmm.
Just why are you doing it?
And I think that really helps because I feel like something that's really appealing about like Whole 30 and 75 hard and all that is like it's a challenge. And so
Hmm.
a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I like that. Like I can't drink for 30 days or 75 days because I'm doing this challenge." And so okay, while you may not do it, you are going to start drinking again after Whole 30, after 75 hard, and it's probably going to be a little too extra because you felt like you were restricting so much. So find that why. Like you're not doing it because it's a challenge, you're not doing it because it's like rules and you have to abide by these rules. Like for me, when I stopped doing it during the weeknights, it was like I've always woken up early, but I'm not like I'm on when I wake up. And then it's like I was getting up really early to like get the kids out the door, get them to school, go do everything I had to do. All my mornings were so early and I was just like super grumpy, super lethargic, like just super irritable. And I was like, I gotta figure out something for my mornings because everybody's hating their lives. And
Hmm.
so I was like, okay, I'm not drinking during the weeknight because I just want to feel better in the mornings. And that is way more of a like, I want to do this, like a motivator than just being like, oh, I'm doing this 30-day challenge.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, so it's like why? Why do you want to do that? You can really start figuring out like, I mean, do you have gut health issues and maybe you want your gut to feel better? Are you feeling inflamed? Do you want to feel less inflamed? Whatever it is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with that, kind of our third tip, I guess, is taking note of the difference that you do feel when you make these changes with alcohol, but really with anything. Realize the differences that you feel because you are going to feel a difference. I mean, at first it might be weird, it might be hard, it might be awkward. You're trying to like fill this gap and kind of navigate almost a new world.
Yeah.
But like Brianna was saying, like you could feel so much better in the mornings. Like feel like you can actually get your day going. Be able to go through your entire day without feel like you're needing a nap. It can really
Mhm.
help the complexion of your skin. It can help you have more energy. It's going to help with like weight loss and even help you create maybe better coping mechanisms. So with that being said, our fourth tip being stop the buffering. Do you want to kind of go into that?
Yes. So I feel like alcohol is used as a buffer. It's used to like maybe make us feel a little less like of social anxiety. Maybe you're in a relationship that isn't really great unless you're having drinks or you're unhappy with it, whatever it is. Or maybe you're that mom that's like, I'm constantly stressed out and I need this after I put the kids in bed because like, oh my God, what a day. Or your job is stressful, whatever it is. we use alcohol for a lot of that, but it's not a very healthy coping mechanism, and it doesn't actually change any situations or make the situations better. It usually makes them worse. So, yeah, you might feel good in the moment, but it's like cascading into a snowball effect. Like, this is just isn't working. So, you brought up a good point where it's like, okay, what do I do? How do I fill this gap? I think it really encourages people to like find better coping mechanisms, find a better way to wind down at the end of the night, find a better way to maybe communicate with your partner, find a better way to, facilitate relationships with people. Like, whatever it is that you kind of are using alcohol for, it kind of makes you find healthier alternatives, which
Mhm.
is, I mean, you're never gonna like not benefit from that.
And
Yep.
I'm sorry, but if every time you're having a bad day, if every time something doesn't go right in your life and your answer is, I need to have a drink, that might be why you keep having bad days. Because, like Brianna was saying, yeah, in the moment you might feel a little better, but that's because the alcohol is affecting your prefrontal cortex and it's affecting how your brain is working. But wake up tomorrow, you still had that bad day and you did nothing about it. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're carrying that bad energy into the next day.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the cycle can happen because I mean, we hear it all the time and I've even catch myself saying we're like I've had a day, I need a drink, you
Yeah,
know?
it's been a day.
Yeah.
And I get
But
that.
yeah, it's when we really think about it, it's not doing anything for
Mhm.
ourselves besides buffering the situation.
Yeah.
We're not elevating our life in any way. We're not facing the problem head on. I feel like this podcast is getting really deep and
I
serious,
know. I'm like, oh wow, it's like therapy.
but
But
we
seriously,
it needs to be talked about.
it does. And it's something we as adults, it's like our go to. We just do it. And I think for a lot of us, we don't realize it. We don't
Mhm.
realize that we're doing this. And then it becomes a habit. And it's like, well, now I just have my wine because that's what I do every night. Or now I order a drink because that's what I do when I go out. And it kind of just, it's so easy for us to create habits. And so I just feel like, we talk about nutrition, that's our thing, but it's overall trying to better yourself. It's like the whole package. And I feel like if you came here because you're like, oh, I want to know more about nutrition and this and that, well, then you have to talk about like, how do you cope, how do you deal with
Mhm.
stress, how do you navigate relationships, how do you feel in your body, and alcohol plays a big part in that. So
Definitely something that just needs to be discussed. And so we're here to help. And
yeah.
I think it can be, well, I guess something that people don't like that I say is that alcohol is a habit. It's not a lifeline. Like you can live without having a drink every night. And
Yeah.
if you are feeling that way where you're like, I have to have a drink every night, or I'm not going to sleep, or I have too much stress, or like this is the only thing that calms my brain, that's a huge sign that we need better coping mechanisms.
That you
We're
need to
running
start
our
drinking
cortisol.
even more than somebody else. And so, okay, while this might be like easier said than done, we are creatures of habit. And if you are stuck in this habit, you're going to kind of need to baby step your way out. So, something that could be really good to start this is like set your drinking boundaries, or maybe figure out, when am I going to drink? So, if you're someone who's like, okay, I do want to drink less, but I don't necessarily want to just say no to alcohol entirely, figure out what's going to work best for you. I'm going to be honest, it was a little bit easy for me in the beginning to be like, oh, I'm not going to drink during the weekdays, because I knew like, okay, weekends, I can do it. And so for a while, it was like, okay, weekends. And then it got to a point where I was having it less and less, that when the weekend came, it was like, do I really want that? Well,
Mhm.
okay. No, but it was a hard boundary that like, just because I skip Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday, doesn't mean I can just have it Monday. Like, my boundaries for my weekdays was like a hard boundary. So if you're someone who's like, I want to lessen it, but I don't want to say goodbye to it, do the thing that your brain loves and reassure your brain, okay, you can have it these days. This is when I'm going to let myself have it, type thing.
Yeah. And I cut back similarly. I started with not getting drinks when we would go out to dinner during the week because Josh and I would eat out so much for like when we first started dating. We just ate out all the time. But so that was the first boundary I set. I wouldn't grab a drink when we were going out on a Wednesday night for dinner. And then I switched it to not on weeknights. I mean, yeah, there are some weeknights, but it's not like part of my routine anymore. And then, yeah, like you were saying, eventually it just comes to a point where you're maybe you just don't want it. And I feel like, again, that can be such a foreign concept sometimes. And this can kind of go with any of the habits that we have, even talking about like a nightly dessert. If you're used to having dessert every night after dinner, and if you work on adjusting that type of routine, you might realize that that's just a habit and get to a point where you don't really want it.
Yeah.
So, I would say my next tip there is not having alcohol as part of your grocery list. And like I've seen sometimes where people like literally beer is part of buying on their daily groceries
Yeah.
or whatever it is that you drink, just not having it as your groceries. And then it's just not always there and available. Makes
Yeah.
it easier.
And then breaking the rules. So, like, if you're someone who associates poolside equals cocktail, or concert equals beers, or going out equals a cocktail, whatever that is, break that rule. Because sometimes it's that second nature, like, oh, we're heading to the pool, grab the cooler. We're heading to here, grab, break
Hmm.
that rule. You don't have to have it. It doesn't have to be associated with it, that sort of thing. I will say it does get so much easier. In the beginning, it's going to feel like you're giving yourself a lot of boundaries. It's going to maybe feel like you're giving yourself some rules. Again, this is why it's really important to go back to your why behind wanting to decrease drinking, because that's really what you're going to fall back on when you are like, okay, but I do want this. Okay, think about why you're deciding to drink less. But over time, when you make it less of a habit and you find better ways to cope and better ways to de stress, you'll find, like me, I don't have the whole weeknight rule anymore. I don't really need it. And like, yeah, I mean, if there's going to be times like maybe I'm going out to dinner and I do want one, whatever. If I do, okay, I get it. But I can tell you that that's way less. And then the amount that I drink is way less too.
Hmm.
So instead
Yes.
of like 2 or 3 drinks, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to order a glass of wine. And then I'm fine with it.
Hmm.
So if you're
Yeah.
someone who's like, I don't know if that could ever be me, it can, baby steps.
Mhm.
And I love that you brought up like, oh, pay attention to how you feel, because that's going to help you keep going.
Yeah, I did forget one step of my process of how I started cutting back to. You kind of reminded me of that. Was I stopped drinking alone. And that was when I realized how crappy my coping mechanisms were because I was like drinking alone because I was bored or I was stressed out or I was sad or, like all these reasons I just didn't want to deal with things. And so I drank
Yeah,
alone. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So that was also another part of setting boundaries. I don't ever drink by myself.
that's a good one. That's a good one. I could have benefited from that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh,
And you really learn to just hang out by yourself and learn your feelings, learn again those coping mechanisms, learn what you truly need in that moment. If it was like relaxation I was looking for, alcohol wasn't doing that for me. You really learn a lot about yourself when you take time to just figure things out.
I agree, because that's not it, but it is such an easy go-to, and
Hmm.
it is so glamorized. And then you look at most of the shows that we watch, all of it. I mean, it just has alcohol, so it's just such a normal staple where it's almost weird if you're not drinking, but it shouldn't even be a thing that anyone pays attention to.
Yeah. Or people think you're pregnant if you're not
Yeah.
drinking and you're a girl.
Okay, as soon as you sit down, like if you're someone who's around like that age, it could be a thing. That's the first question people are going to ask. I mean, I've done it to like my close friends, like, oh, you're pregnant.
Right.
You're pregnant. They're not pregnant. But, no,
Yes.
but yeah. So, I mean, with all things, you got to find a balance, like if you just are no, hey, I'm someone, I actually do enjoy alcohol. I know, like, I'm just going to have it. I know it's not going to be a no for everything. Okay. Then you don't need to write it off forever, but
Yeah.
finding a balance can be really helpful. And hopefully this helps. I mean, I know Bailey and I, neither of us are like sober. We will have
I
alcohol.
mean,
It's
right
just,
now, today we are.
yeah, I mean, right now we're sober. Yeah. So, but I mean, we're not like, oh, absolutely zero alcohol. It's just something that I don't know, I think it's a really good sign of maturity and good mental health, and
Hmm.
like just trying to better yourself as a human. And, you want to feel your best and be your best. Just finding that balance. And again, no one's perfect, but hopefully you could just learn to have better balance.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
alcohol can be less controlling.
Hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, closing this out, I would say it might be hard. It might be awkward to kind of cut back on alcohol and figure out this new world almost of what does it look like to hang out with yourself? What does it look like to have a water instead of vodka and water? You know, it could be really hard. It can be an adjustment. But I will throw this out there. If you want support, feel free to message us on Instagram. We
Yeah.
will talk you through it. We will help you. We will, I mean, we're not experts in this area at all, but we both worked on cutting back on alcohol and it has helped so much. And everyone that I've talked to that's used to like the nightly wine, they've noticed a difference because you don't know how bad you're feeling until you get to feel good again.
Yeah. And you don't really know how much alcohol plays into how you're feeling until you cut it out. I've seen people who are like, I need to go on an elimination diet. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I'm like, but they don't even think about
Yeah.
alcohol. Start there. It's a toxin. You know, there's nothing
It's
actually beneficial
literally
from
toxic
alcohol.
to your body.
There's nothing actually beneficial from alcohol. So hopefully this helps you guys. Let us know. I mean, we do have a couple of episodes coming out that kind of, tell you how to have fun with alcohol and like, certain alcohols to maybe choose over others, whatever. So we understand that, but we're just hoping that we kind of, drop
Hmm.
this little thing in your brain that gets you thinking about it.
Yeah. In this episode, I mean, it was a little bit more serious than episodes we've had. And with all this being said, like if you do feel like you have a drinking problem, you're really struggling, definitely please go get help. Find a really good support system to help you out. If you do need additional help, it's available. There's a lot of different resources available if you are having maybe an alcohol addiction or, yeah.
Absolutely. There's nothing shameful about getting help with that.
Mhm. Right. We hope this was helpful to you guys. If you found it to be helpful, share your favorite tip, send it to a friend, and next week we're going to lighten it up with our two special men guests.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna have two special men on here. It'll be fun. You guys are I don't even know. I'm excited, but I'm nervous. So
Yes.
I think
We've
it'll be
been
fun.
teasing the episode twice now, so I hope they deliver. I hope they don't let us
Yeah.
down.
I
We're letting
know.
them into our world.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. That I do know. So I'll just leave it there.
All right,
All right.
everyone. Yes. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.